the mute button on my good mic, Audacity picks it up when I hit the button. So there's a click. There's a click every time I hit the button.
Oh yeah, it's the same for me. Do you use mic mute?
Like I have a button on the mic to mute it. Yeah.
There's a program.
I have a program that has
where...
the same problem. That's called mic
what?
mute.
You know what? I might have just remembered because there is software that came with the mic. So maybe that's what I need to do.
Hey, listen, if I got to go through an hour and a half of audio and remove clicks, that's fine.
Remember the first time that you did all the editing on like the first podcast fonts and you wondered why there was clicking all throughout mine? It's because I was muting myself.
Yeah, no, I remember what that was like.
I think I've got this now. So yeah, I've not had this mic very long. I got it specifically because I really wanted to do more podcast things and wanted to have something proper for podcasting in my streams.
Have you been on some other casts, like any secret
I mean, the Zelda
project?
Universe one.
Oh, well, yeah, that's not really secret. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's no secret project. I was on the ZU one, and then I also write for RPG Fan, and we have weekly podcasts there. So I joined one of those this year. They've been asking me to be on them for a year, and I kept saying not yet. So.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When we first started when we first got started with this podcast, I was doing research and listening to all the other Zelda podcasts that were all the ones I could find on Spotify anyway, that weren't dead, that seemed to be recent. And we started March last year, which is right about when your episode on Zelda Beyond came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I heard that, and that's how I think that's when I started following you on Twitter, and then I saw your post about wanting to get like onto more podcasts and stuff. I was like, oh well, let me get that invite.
We got an offer for you.
Yeah, if we don't stop me, I'll ramble about Zelda history forever and ever. So I'm gonna swap my mic on Discord so that it matches the other mic. So hopefully this works.
Okay. Let me know when it's outside.
How about now?
Yep.
Okay, I put the other mic away, so.
It's a very full-bodied sound.
What?
His microphone quality, full-bodied sound.
Full-bodied sound?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, through Discord, it definitely sounds a little different.
Let's see. This is...
Sparta.
Oh, I was going to go the story of a girl.
Who cried a river and drowned the whole world.
Exactly.
Kitty. Kitty.
Is the podcat joining us today?
Yeah, we got the podcat.
Oh yeah, I got two kitties. One's sleeping in here on my bed and hopefully won't wake up and start yelling, and the other one is sitting at my feet.
Kitties. She was resting her chin on my wrist, and I was petting her. She was just laying it there. Oh, so cute.
Aww.
So cute. Beautiful.
So I need to pull up a clock then?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pulling up which world clock did you say?
Whichever one you prefer.
Yeah, they should all be the same.
I don't have a preferred one.
Today is the day you make the biggest decision.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the A4NB4Y podcast. All things Zelda here. Last episode, we covered the Tower of Hera and Death Mountain. Got schmacked by some falling rocks. But today, today, it's a little different. We're going to dive in to one of the most iconic parts of the game. And we have probably one of my favorite boss fights and a special guest today. We're just going to hit you with everything today. As always, my name is Tony, and my two co-hosts.
I'm Ryan Fonzie, a bowl of soup.
I'm Cameron Hagee, a brush ready to get your hair just the way you want it.
Nice. And like Anthony said, we actually have a special guest with us today. This is Joshua Lindquist. Did I pronounce that right, Josh?
Yep, that's right. Hi, everyone.
Great. And Josh is a head writer at Zelda Universe. Is that right?
The title they call me is content director.
Whoops.
But I oversee the whole website. All of the publications, all of the development of the site overall.
Oh, so like you're the man, is what you're saying.
For 1/4 of the project, yes.
Okay, great.
Nice.
So yeah, no, I ended up hearing Josh speak at a different podcast. He actually had a great interview on the Zelda Beyond podcast about a year ago. And we'll put a link to that right in the episode description because I don't want to have a whole interview session here, but I did just want to give some background. So Josh, you've been with Zelda Universe for 10 years, is that right?
11 at this point, with ZU specifically, and then I operated my own Zelda site for 9 years before that.
All right, so you've been in the game a while then.
20 years this year.
20 years. Like I say, I've been playing the games that long, but we just passed our 1 year anniversary of being content creators. So you definitely have some miles on us, and that's a good thing. That's why I am excited to have you here with us today.
Senpai.
What can we learn from you?
I know all the tricks.
All right. I mean, you have a pretty rich history with the game, A Link to the Past, at least from what I gather. I mean, you seem to enjoy it. You said you've played through it a few times a year. Was it your first Zelda?
Yep, it's my first Zelda game, first video game I ever picked out for myself that my parents didn't just give me as a gift. My favorite game of all time.
Fantastic.
Oh, wow.
There you have it. I don't even have to ask what your favorite Zelda game is now.
Yeah, favorite
Right.
Zelda game right here.
I got a whole list of my favorite Zelda games, but that's a whole podcast to itself.
Okay. I gotcha. Yeah, we're building our lists as we go, at least in the public. I mean, actually, we could all name our favorites, but after each season, we've been doing like a re-rank. I know this is our third season, so we've only done one rank so far, and eventually at the end of this, we'll have a whole list, and it'll be great. But,
Yeah, I have to say, like, this game, so this might make you feel some type of way, Josh, but so this is my first playthrough of this game, and I have to say, it's growing on me, and it's going past the ranks of Zelda games, for sure, for me.
I envy you.
I get to take it in all fresh.
Yeah, up until about a year ago, me and Anthony we've only played through like the intro, like the first dungeon or two of this game. I've played through it last year for the first time, but this is Anthony's first time actually going through the entirety of it. And for me, it's still a pretty new development. I've always been like a 3D Zelda guy because I started with Ocarina of Time, and honestly, the 2D Zeldas never caught me until, just recently started streaming and I started playing more of these games, and I actually have come to appreciate them a lot more than I ever had before. So it's definitely been a really cool experience. Are you more of a 2D Zelda guy, or are you like a 3D? Like what's your bag?
It's kind of half and half. My top 5 Zeldas is 3 3D ones and 2 2D ones, so I like all of them for different reasons. But I do think it's a bit of a shame the 2D games get so overlooked, because the big console releases have, since '98 at least, been 3D Zelda. But it is a pretty cool experience playing them as they come out. I don't know if a whole lot of people do that. or I've been able to do that. So like I only missed the first 2 in the order they came out. So like I played Ocarina of Time as a kid, but played A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening before that.
Same.
So I'm a little partial to those 2 just because I grew up with them.
Yeah, I've actually never played Link's Awakening.
That is another one.
It's like Confessions of a Zelda Streamer.
That one, the Switch remake, is fantastic. Highly recommended. Like I've always loved Link's Awakening, but the remake has made me love it a lot more. Played it 4 or 5 times last year.
Wow.
Nice.
Quickly going up the ranks of my favorite Zeldas right there.
And do you stream all of these playthroughs or?
Oh no, I play Zelda on the side, just as a casual activity while watching TV or whatever.
Gotcha.
I mean, I do stream Zelda games also, but not all of my playthroughs. No, sometimes it's just some of them you can beat in an afternoon if you know what you're doing. I mean, Ocarina of Time I've beaten in one sitting multiple times. Or not. I'm sorry, not Ocarina of Time. A Link to the Past is what I meant.
Ooh. Okay.
I've probably done Ocarina of Time also. But no, A Link to the Past you can beat on a Saturday afternoon, just hanging out.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I get. Is it naturally a short game, or it's just when you know the secrets and the tricks, you can just kind of crush it?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. The game is deceptively. It feels longer than it is if you don't know what you're doing, which is maybe true of most video games. But I mean, I can 100% it in 4 to 5 hours just without really thinking about it.
Nice. All right. Well, I mean that's great. Okay, so we're actually not here to talk about Link's Awakening now that I think about it. But yeah, so we can just jump right into our normal stuff if you don't mind. I'll kind of just give a quick synopsis of where we are, and then we can discuss just like how big of a moment this really is. So, like Anthony was sharing in the intro, when we last left off, we finished the Tower of Hera. Which means we now have all 3 of the pendants needed in order to obtain the Master Sword. So we can head back down the mountain, head back through some of the cave passes, and get over to the Lost Woods, where we make our way through the woods. I mean, there's a few logs we got to go under, a few enemies we have to take care of, but nothing really major in the way. If you
The thieves.
Right, I don't even run into the thieves anymore. And I go through the Lost Woods. I might see them at the corner of the screen.
It's cute how they just look like they're all peddling around. Like, I'm gonna get you.
That crow always gets me, man. The guai thing.
Oh, the guai, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get hit by the bird almost every time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's the warden of the forest. He's not a very, doesn't really keep much out, but
Best burb.
keeps watchful eye.
Second best burb.
It's Kapora's ancestor.
Oh, all right. All right. So you can actually run into a few false Master Swords on the way. Like if you haven't found the pedestal yet, you can find just random swords in the woods. Link will lift it up and be like, "Oh, this is it." Wait, no, it's not. And then you just have to keep looking. Kind of a funny moment. I mean, I think the first time I played, I actually did grab one thinking like, "Are you serious? Like this seems like such a casual place for a sword to be." And like it went through the script and I was like, "Oh, that's good. That's rich." But when we finally do make it to the right spot where the real sword is, there's actually there's like a visual break, like a screen fades to black and it opens back up, and we have this gorgeous forest walkway where forest creatures like squirrels and birds are kind of parting ways, and
Straight out of a Disney cartoon.
pretty much.
Yeah.
It's a big scenic opening with
It's a serene little forest meadow with all the little animals running around having a good time.
yeah. So I mean, they really make it clear that this place is special. Like it's a forest clearing with like special lighting and everything. We walk up and you can see the pedestal where the Master Sword is held, and in front of it, you can actually see what would you call like a plaque. It almost looks like a tombstone, but I don't think that's the idea. But you go up and you can read it. It looks a lot like the one in the desert or up on the mountain if you ran into that one. And if you try to read it normally, it'll come up with Ancient Hylian script. And so if we know what we know about these kinds of plaques, we can pull out the Book of Medora in order to read it. So this one, it kind of has a poem on it. And it reads, "The hero's triumph on Cataclysm's eve wins 3 symbols of virtue. The Master Sword he will then retrieve, keeping the knight's line true." So little rhyme for you there. But now that we have our three symbols of virtue, we are worthy of taking up the Master Sword. And this is probably like the most iconic part of any Zelda game. Maybe like
it hit pretty hard.
I mean, pretty sure this was the first game where an actual Master Sword was. I mean, the first game had the Magic Sword, so it wasn't really a true Master Sword. And then I think, the Adventure of Link, likewise. You don't even get another sword. You just start with the sword you start with is the one you end with. So I mean, this is big in terms of just lore defining for the future of Zelda.
It's the first scene. I think it's the first music scene as well. That Koji Kondo made the iconic playing the Master Sword out of the stone ring that plays in almost every Zelda game.
This is the game that started as well.
It's pretty huge. I mean, I don't know. Like, how do you guys? I mean, like when I come up to this, like I know we all know what we're getting into. Like it reminds me. You remember like when Link was featured in Soul Calibur, and like in the intro they showed him like lifting the sword up into the air in the forest grove. Like it was straight out of this. Like that wasn't actually like an Ocarina of Time reference. That was a Link to the Past reference. And I don't know. It's just, to me, like that image of him holding the sword up in like the lit forest grove has always been like the image of like where the Master Sword was supposed to be, I don't know.
I feel like it makes sense. I mean, the Master Sword is evil's bane. So you can imagine that it's light, it's serenity, it's peace, whereas evil is chaos and anarchy and destruction. So being in a peaceful forest meadow, although right outside that door you got little guys running around trying to steal all your stuff, so I mean, we'll just forget about that. But in this little forest meadow, it perfectly symbolizes like the light, the peace, and the serenity that the Master Sword should represent, being the antithesis of evil, being its bane. I think it is symbolized, chef's kiss.
I definitely agree. If you want my take on this, I'll wait because I got something special planned. So just keep going.
You have something special.
Something special.
My experience with the Master Sword. So just keep going on.
No, I would say like it almost aside from the timeline implications of why the sword is there, it does seem almost like it was put there to keep it hidden away so that evil couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And it is, like you say, someone has planted fake swords around, almost to just deter anyone trying to find the real thing. And then you actually do have to hunt for the meadow. And I remember being a kid, and when I found it for the first time, I was really excited.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I found it before I could even get it. And yeah, it was a really cool moment because, like you said, it was the first time there was a Master Sword. Although in my case, it was the first time I played a game to get a cool sword in the first place. But maybe to me now, I feel like the Ocarina of Time get the sword scene is more iconic.
Yeah,
and that this one has maybe become second to it. But that maybe just says more about how Ocarina of Time is seen in the community overall versus A Link to the Past.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's always been conversations about like which of those two games deserves the credit, because a lot of, I mean, we've talked about it already here on the cast. Like a lot of Ocarina of Time is drawn directly from A Link to the Past, and nobody can really deny that at this point. But it's just one of those things where Ocarina of Time being what it was in terms of like a milestone for gaming as a whole has just created a shadow that unfortunately has taken a lot of the thunder away from A Link to the Past.
Yeah, and like A Link to the Past is like, I don't want to call it, even though it's my favorite, I don't want to say it's like perfected the formula or anything.
But at that point, it was a pretty big leap from the NES to the Super NES, but it wasn't a leap from 2D to 3D. And I think what made Ocarina of Time special, and maybe gets to get more of the credit 20 years later, is how it successfully jumped from one to the other, where a lot of games totally fumbled trying to become 3D. And Zelda just said, look, here's a Link to the Past, but in this totally new way. And it might be better than it was before.
Also now there's a power trip for any kids playing the game where they get to go from the 10-year-old that they actually are to the 17-year-old that they want to be. It's just, I think pulling the Master Sword in Ocarina of Time has that added effect of like, now I'm the cool Link, It's a lot. There's a lot to it. But yeah, so we get this Master Sword, and immediately we get a message from Sahasrara, our favorite sage, and it basically tells us now we have the ability, like now that we have the sword, and like you have to make your way back. Aghanim's going to perform his ritual. Now you have the power to stop him, and so we can make our way back. I think at this point I actually stopped playing this past playthrough. And when I restarted, I started from the sanctuary because it was closest to the castle where I was headed. And in the sanctuary, you'll find that the priest has been incapacitated. He's like on the ground. It seems like he's dying.
He did not have a good time.
What's being communicated
with Aghanim.
Yeah. And he's like,
I've never done that. I'll have to try the save and quit.
It was very weird to start up the game and just be standing in front of a dead priest. Oh, all right.
It's like, he's like, that happened.
Guess it's time to go to the castle.
He's like, you were a second too late. Like, Aghanim just captured Zelda and took her away. Like, you have to go stop him.
Link's like, bro, I just woke up.
It's like, I just got here. What do you mean? And you can go, like, after he passes, there's actually a chest in the room, and inside of it is a full heart container.
That is there before. Did
Whoops.
you miss it?
I must have.
You can get that as soon as you leave the sewer at the beginning of the game.
Oh.
Man's been playing with one less heart the whole time.
Well, I guess I didn't see the chest. I think I got out into the sanctuary and just was like, all right, keep it moving. But no, okay. Not having seen that, can I just tell you that it did seem like as if we had defeated the boss of the priest. It was kind of humorous at the time, but now I understand if it was there before, then that's not what they're saying at all by that. But
so Aghanim must have just dropped his heart container when he beat the priest. I guess is what happened.
I mean, you don't get one from Aghanim.
Oh,
true.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
So let me tell you about my experience, because this was probably my favorite part of any recent Zelda game that I've played. Okay. So leaving from the forest, Zelda calls you telepathically and is like, soldiers are coming to the sanctuary. So I was like, all right, I'll make my way to the sanctuary. So I'm just walking, right? I didn't know that the Master Sword was a Death Star laser. Okay.
So I'm just walking through the woods. I get to the knights, and then I just go blip, 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 and just destroyed the knights. And I'm sitting here like, like I'm holding utter destruction in my hands. So I
probably spent, I'm not even kidding you, like I didn't go straight to the sanctuary, okay? I probably spent like at least 30 minutes just going blip, blop, blip, blop, deleted that dude. And my girlfriend was sitting in the back like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is the best Zelda game ever. The Master Sword is so powerful. I was having a moment with this Master Sword. Like, it was great.
When you're not used to 2D, the sword shooting a laser is actually pretty rare.
Yeah.
So I can understand that would be a power trip.
I said that Ocarina of Time made the jump completely, but the lack of a laser on the sword,
I agree.
Probably the most disappointing thing. All the Zelda games before Ocarina of Time had laser swords.
Yep.
Right. I think. I mean,
did Breath of the Wild
laser sword? If you got the Fierce Deities mask and Majora's mask, like a year later. But even that was like
only for boss fights.
Only for boss fights. Super overpowered and like fun to use, but
and you had to beat the whole game to get
it. Yeah,
worth.
True.
Yeah, it was great. Like I probably spent a good 30 minutes just killing guys with the blip laser
on all those nights.
We know how Zelda got kidnapped in Mayo's game. Just on his way, like, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna save the princess. He's just clock going, and he's just like swinging his sword around, having fun. Like, oh no, Zelda.
So yeah, not only did I do that for about 30 minutes, I also went up north to the Death Mountain, like in the Dark World, and because I had read somewhere that you can get the Ether Medallion.
You can. Yeah.
So I did that too. So not only did I spend 30 minutes killing knights and getting the Ether Medallion, no wonder Zelda was captured in my game. The priest has probably been dying out like, where's Link? She called him an hour ago.
It's not a bad time to get the Ether Medallion. There's not really a super convenient time to get it before you need it. So
yeah,
you kind of just at some point you just gotta say, okay, I'm gonna walk back up the mountain now.
Yeah. Well, see, my thinking is like I forgot a lot of things already. Like I skipped a lot of things that I've learned from past episodes. Like they'll be explaining things since this is my first playthrough. Like I didn't even know about the Zora flippers. And then I thought I got stuck in the Dark World when I got to there. Oh, I'm sorry. I got stuck in the because we're not there yet. And
well, we went through it once.
It was just like I don't want to miss anything, so I was like, I'm going up there. I'm getting it before I do this.
Great. So, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, the Ether Medallion. I mean, it could help you get through the castle. I remember the first time I played through this game. Going through this castle was like a Dark Souls experience. Like I was dying left and right. I could not defeat all of these knights in a row to save my life. Like it wasn't until after I had played the first Legend of Zelda game and like got some training in 2D Zelda that I was able to be competent at this game.
Got a dodge roll.
Yeah, so going into this castle and making this boss run itself was a task for me. This time was much better. It was like a one shot. I just went in and just destroyed the place. Got to the end and beat Aghanim. But there's a lot more to it than that. So some things of note, like you come into the castle, you go up to the second floor and get through a door that was originally shielded. The Master Sword can now cut its way into. And the first thing you come up against is like 2 ball and chain knights at once, which is pretty intense. I mean, if you have full health when you get there, it's not too bad because you can just laser sword them both. I mean, otherwise, you do your boomerang method or any other ways we've talked about on how to fight these guys. But then it's just a big gauntlet. Like it's a bunch of rooms in a row, all with some knights in them. Half of them, I want to say, like there's a big section right in the middle of this run where all the lights are off in each room.
That was really annoying.
Yeah.
What do all these rooms, like, why are they here? Like, the rest of the castle is a castle. You can see how it's a castle. It looks like a castle. Then you go up to the second floor and you go into where you'd normally expect like the throne room or like a staircase to the top would be, and it's like a gauntlet to the point where one room has like a pit on both sides of it and this narrow little walkway like, oh, in order to see the king, you must go over the void. Like, what is this?
The knights.
Yeah,
they train the knights in this gauntlet.
I feel like it is supposed to be the tower. Like you go up the tower in the castle. I've heard it called the Hyrule Castle Tower or just Upper Hyrule Castle. So, like, I think that's the intent is you're going up to the top of the castle, like in some tower. A Link to the Past does kind of have a bit of an issue where that the developers try to avoid nowadays, in that most of the spaces don't really feel like they're lived in.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why you end up with rooms with just little narrow paths rather than it feeling like a real castle. It is kind of the one part of the castle that feels that way, although if you go down in the dungeon, there's bottomless pits also.
True.
I guess those are there to stop the prisoners from getting out. So maybe these are there so that they can hide Zelda at the top and the prisoners can't escape the dungeon and attack the tower. But yes, it doesn't really feel like a real place.
It reminds me of like a museum or something. Like it's kind of like well, you got the statues and everything, but at the same time, like I bring this up again, but like when Kate and I, when we went to Europe, one of the things we did, we visited the Palace of Versailles. And it's kind of like that. Like you go into the building and they give you a tour, but it's really weird because a lot of the halls and stuff, like they have like a big string of bedrooms that are kind of positioned in a square. So like it creates a big loop around the building and everything's just kind of chained one room to the next. And the rooms look lived in because there actually are beds and chairs and stuff in them, but they also don't seem practical because everything is just covered in artwork and like super gaudy stuff. So
this might just be like that, but they took the beds out.
Every room beds out. It's just a bunch of square bedrooms. You just don't know it because when Aghanim took over, he decided beds were frivolous and unnecessary.
I can fit less nights in this room because of these useless beds. Be gone.
More nights, less beds.
And this long room here, get rid of most of the floor. What?
Sleep is for the not mind controlled, and we don't care about those ones.
So I wanted to ask, because I didn't really have too much of a trouble with the knights, but did anyone have trouble with the Chasupas?
The who?
Gesundheit?
Oh, goodness. Okay.
I haven't had soup in a while, my guy.
Glad I know what that is.
I'm glad that got that reaction. So, you know how there's keys in this game, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so for some reason, the creators of Zelda decided to differentiate between keys that fly and keys that perch. And the perched goodness. Perched
peaches? What?
It's a tongue twister. The perched Chasupas that's what they're called. They look like perched keys, but they're perched Chasupas. I don't know why they had to differentiate between them because it's been keys since like the first Zelda. But yeah, I saw that name on like the wiki and I'm like, huh?
Oh,
Since
you're
when?
talking specifically about the ones that sit there and then
specifically.
fly somewhere else and then sit there and then fly somewhere else.
Fly in a little arc and then stick to a different surface.
Yeah,
Just
so
soup.
I think the intent, and there's a couple times in the game where things are a little mixed up like this. I think they're supposed to be the Dark World keys. But they are in the castle for some reason. There's also a point in the game where there are Igors in the Dark World when there should be Goriyas, or maybe it's the other way around.
I think it's the other way around.
But they've got the enemies mixed up a couple times, and I think this is a case of that. But yes, the enemy names in this game are odd.
That's a good point to bring up because I think last episode we actually just went over Kadangos instead of Dodongos. Right. I was like, what?
Yeah. I think this might be chalked up to like, Light World and Dark World, yes, but like a logistics issue, right? Like you have the director coming in being like, so how are we coming along with the keys? It's like, which keys are you talking about? The keys that fly straight or the keys that fly in little arches? All right, we need to distinguish these two.
Well, it's also
what should we call it? And then he sneezes. He goes, "Soup," and he's like, "Yeah, that'll work."
Doesn't sound like keys at all. It's great.
No, it's important too. Like the enemy names are not very well known. A lot of the enemies in A Link to the Past. When you had the original The Legend of Zelda, a lot of that stuff I think is in the manual. But there's also only a handful of enemies. Most of the enemies in A Link to the Past we didn't know the names of until Japanese players' guides were imported and translated.
Wow.
Pretty much. I didn't think there was a game that ever talked about enemy names until Navi. We had Navi to be like, Link, hey, this is this enemy, essentially.
Yeah, this is an Anubis. You would have never known that. But yeah, Navi is the first time that it was really told outside of a book or a cartoon show.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always thought it was funny how Navi had all those information like about everything until you got to Ganon at the end, and she's like, I don't know, do what you need. Like, I got nothing on this guy. But, foreign enemies from far off lands. When she's been a forest fairy reasonably her whole life, she just knows all the deets.
Fair point.
It's like Dee Verwin, the fairy over here.
It's a fairy education. They got to go to school before they get assigned a Kokiri.
She has wiki rule.
Just in case any of these other creatures come into the forest. Like, here's what we're protecting against. All right. Cool. So we do eventually make it up to Aghanim, past the Chisupas, I guess. Is that how you say that? I don't even know if I heard you right.
Yeah, you heard it right.
Chisupa.
And Aghanim is standing there in front of a table, and Zelda's on the table. And he makes a kind of an odd comment that he was waiting for Link so that he could see Zelda vanish before his very eyes.
Demoralization tactic.
Right. But he waited to do this ritual. He's like, I'm all right. I'm just going to stand here and, getting the seal open is critical for, all of our evil, nefarious plans. But I'm going to wait. I really want this hero to see this.
He wanted to see Link's face when he made her float. Because, every good Link villain or Zelda villain has to make Zelda float in any game. It's the requirement. We talked
That's
about.
That's what we've determined from what we've seen so far is that most of if not all of the Zelda villains have this strange innate ability to make Zelda float in the air. It's one of the defining characteristics of a villain. I mean, I don't know if Vati ever makes her float. I know he turns her to stone, but that's a whole different game. But otherwise, he does this crazy lightning looking spell that makes Zelda vanish into thin air, apparently. Or disapparently, I guess. And then he has this line that the legendary hero cannot defeat us, the tribe of evil, when we are armed with the golden power. Which, honestly, most games that we've played so far, the other two games that we played so far, the villains do not respect Link as the hero this early on in the game. Normally, they're still kind of just calling him some brat, some useless kid, whatever you want to call it. It's one of the earliest times where I feel like Link has actually proved himself to be the hero, and the rest of the characters in the game have actually accepted and acknowledged that. I don't know, especially Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword had the biggest problem. Like, they just, throughout the entire game, we were never acknowledged as being the hero. We were always like, you look like you could be one day, maybe, if you keep working at it.
What do you mean you've done 2 chores for me already? I'm not going to teach you this song unless you do a 3rd chore.
Let me test you again.
I know that you did a lot, but now you have to gather music.
Yeah, it's just fun. Like, I think a big part of that is just the weight that was actually given to the Master Sword in this one. And you had to go and collect those 3 pendants of virtue that were actually a pretty big deal, and you had to be someone who was pure of heart and strong of body to even wield the Master Sword. So now that you have it, it's like, no, like you've signed up. You're now the hero. Like, that's, everyone agrees. Like, yep, you're the one in that position. Even Aghanim, like, he's like, yep, you're the hero, but we still have these plans and you're still not going to stop us. And then, he kind of shoots back towards the back of the room and disappears. And the first time I played this game, I did not understand what had just happened.
Yup.
This is a very common place to see people very confused.
Because you can just bounce. It doesn't look like there's anything else to do in this room.
True.
And you're like, I thought I was going to be fighting somebody today, but I guess maybe not. And you can wander around infinitely and never really figure out, unless you luckily have somebody either in the chat of your stream or elsewhere just tell you, hey, cut that curtain in the back of the room.
Yeah, he does actually vanish into that curtain.
Right.
So like they were trying to give a visual cue, but 30 years has shown us that their visual cue is not enough.
Because like in a 2D space, you could argue that going towards the back of the room and disappearing into the curtain looks an awful lot like shooting out the ceiling.
Or just teleporting because he's Mr. Magic Man.
Exactly.
But nah, he waiting for you in the room right behind you.
Yeah, you can't cut the curtain, and you can go back, and he'll have this snarky line about, "Oh, so you'd like to be destroyed totally? All right, great, I can make that happen." And he comes back out, and you get to get into this boss fight against Aghanim, the Dark Sorcerer, right?
Yeah.
And it's a game of what was it called? Death Volley.
Oh, I hate this
The
fight.
traditional
Dead Man's Folly.
tennis match
Dead
in
Man's
Zelda
Volley.
games.
There we go.
The first instance of it.
Yeah, true.
Did everybody else play Ocarina of Time before this?
No,
I did for sure.
I definitely did.
'Cause
I
no,
played this way before Ocarina.
So you were? Did you know what to do the first time you did it?
Not specifically. I mean, it probably took me 10, 15 minutes of running around before I even tried to hit one, and then I probably ended up hitting the wrong one first, and then trying to hit the other one, and then it did do something, and then figured it out.
I did not know that you could use the sword to deflect the beams until after I played Ocarina of Time.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, I think there's actually, I don't want to be that guy, but I think there's a telepath tile in
There
the
is.
castle somewhere.
There is.
And Sahasrarla kind of gives that
7-8-year-old
tip
me
of,
did not understand what that meant.
right. Yeah, it's like you can't damage him directly. You have to deflect his magic back at him or something like I think that's a paraphrase of what the tip is.
So there's another way to do it.
Okay.
This is not really it's pretty well known at this point. Does anybody know the trick in Ocarina of Time without the sword to fight Ganondorf?
I know about the bottle.
Yeah, the bottle.
Any swiping
In
item.
in this game, it's the bug
Oh, use
net.
the bug net? Yeah.
And when I was a kid, that's what I figured out. It was just desperation, trying everything I could. And so the bug net for several years was the only way I knew to do it. And even after playing Link's Awakening has the same concept with the sword, and I used the sword and it still did not click in my head that I could use the sword in A Link to the Past. It was not for several years till I went back and was like, wait a minute, maybe this works.
You're just trying to make little Timmy and Kakariko Village proud, right? That's all that is. I mean, he can't catch bugs, so you might as well beat evil villains with it, right?
You'll make him very proud.
You take it back to him and it's got burn marks on it. It's like, what did you do? Some crazy bugs out there, man.
Yeah, I was catching some fireflies.
No, so I actually really like this fight, just partially because of my story with it. But I like Dead Man's Volley. I'm always a little disappointed when a Zelda game doesn't have it. But I like it as a concept. It's one of those core mechanics of a Zelda game that I just expect to be there. That I don't know that I've really played another game that copies it, not in the same way anyway. And so I'm always excited when it shows up, and I like this fight. It's not a real difficult fight, but I think it's fun.
Yeah, the only thing you really have to learn is that every 4 attacks he does lightning, and whenever he teleports to the middle and then doesn't look at where you are, he's going to do lightning. That's the only thing to learn about the fight, really.
Yeah, the little group of orbs that he shoots out that all kind of scatter in different directions. Is there anything to do about that other than dodge it?
Nope.
You can smack it.
Yeah, I mean, you can hit it, and if you're good, you can use the red shield to block the little blue fireball that spreads out of it. But no, the best thing to do is just dodge it.
Gotcha.
Oh, I always just smacked it, and then it just kind of as long as you're standing in a cardinal direction, that's not where they explode, you should be good.
Right. And if you're positioned right, your shield will block the little fireball too.
Yeah.
But it can be a little annoying.
My problem with this
fight. The bug
fight
net also does not deflect lightning.
It's just about what I was going to say was when he first did the lightning, I tried to shoot it back at him with the Master Sword, And nope, that does not work.
No Yoda powers here.
He killed me like three or four times. I did every part perfectly except for when he got to the lightning. The lightning killed me every time, and I did dodge it a few times, but I didn't know the signs. So I beat him by just not knowing the signs and getting lucky. And then I was like, well, I created a suspend point on the Switch. Let me go back to this fight. And then Cameron, I think, told me a hint, like he does something that it wasn't what I thought it was. So I went back and I figured it out. And it's not that hard once you figure it out.
Yeah, what I normally look out for with that, because I know some people get, I mean, from what I've heard, like get confused about when he's doing a regular volley and when he's doing lightning. And from what I understand, when he's going to do lightning, he always goes to like the top of the room and faces down. But the real thing is like he won't lock onto you. Like he'll pick a direction and just stick with it. Whereas when he's doing a volley, if you're moving about the room, he'll actually turn to face you, like as if he's actively aiming.
Yep, top center of the room, always facing south.
Yeah. So if you're trying to fight him that way, like if you're at south and he's at the top center and he does Dead Man's Volley, it's going to look the same way. So you really need to like move to the left or right in order to tell if he's tracking you or not.
Yeah, I mean, I usually just if he goes to the top center of the room, I don't even try. Even if he starts turning, because sometimes he's right off center or whatever and turns anyway. I just go up to the top and wait for that whatever he's doing to end. Like you can stand right next to him while he's doing lightning, and he won't do anything about it.
Right. Don't try to hit him though.
No. Then you will get hit by lightning. Just a smaller piece of lightning.
Yeah, the sword is a wonderful conductor of electricity. It's supposed to be resistant to magic in general. So we eventually whittle him down, and he eventually. I mean, it's funny because typically what happens is you deflect that last beam towards him, and everything stops when he gets hit by it, but the beam is still in the air while he's having this conversation with you because it hasn't like fully played out and hit him and disappeared.
Yes.
So he's just talking through a beam, and he says like well met, like the true hero that you are, but I'm not ready to admit defeat yet. I will draw you into the dark world. And he does some fancy magic. You get a little bit of freedom to try to run around, but you can't really go anywhere, and you end up transported back into the dark world. And so this is our second like necessary I guess placement into the dark world, and this time we actually have the Moon Pearl with us, so we will be able to do anything and everything we can in the light world, and we're not turned into a bunny. So kind of the start of the end, like the start of like the actual game in a sense, if you want to put it that way.
I mean, you could call it the second half of the game, but it's much longer than the first half.
Right. But to me, it's like the real, like you came in as the hero, like you just took on this role, like you just got the job basically when you got the Master Sword, and now you're learning what that job actually is, because it wasn't just going to fight Aghanim, it's going to rescue an entire second world, it seems. So, so this is actually where we're ending our story for today, but we've just picked up our habit of looking at the little manga series that came out alongside this game back in the day. So we can go through that as well, but that's the end of our actual gameplay for today. So
I have a funny little thing to mention. I just thought it was funny considering Elden Ring just came out and all that. So I was watching a YouTube video of someone trying to fight Aghanim and go through the castle as a speed run. And as you do with YouTube videos, you scroll and look at the comments to see if anybody says anything funny or anything of the sort. And I saw a comment of a guy who said, "Why doesn't my Master Sword shoot lasers anymore?" And then the only comment that dude got was "Get good." And I was dying laughing. Why doesn't my Master Sword shoot lasers anymore? Get good.
I don't think I found a sword that shoots lasers in Elden Ring yet.
Right.
You've been playing some Elden Ring there? Josh?
Oh yeah, yep.
How far
Multitasking,
along are
playing
you?
multiple games at once. I've mostly explored. I haven't done the story tons, but I finished Stormvale, story wise.
Nice.
But otherwise, I'm just wandering.
Same. I finished Stormvale, and now I'm just kind of filling out my map at this point. I've made it to a couple different places I really shouldn't be at, just based on where my level is and what's there. And I mean, Torrent is a wonderful companion that lets you go places where if you get hit, you'll die pretty quick, but you can avoid it all. So I'm just trying to see everything and then make a plan from there.
No, it's very fun to explore video games in general. So I mean, it's one of my favorite parts of Zelda. So it's fun to just wander around, even if you get jump scared and stabbed to death.
I was actually thinking about that earlier today because I was like, thinking about like you going back to the Ocarina of Time discussion about Z targeting and like some of the other milestone mechanics that they have are still present even in Elden Ring 24 years later.
Mm-hmm.
You still can like toggle target things. Just straight up. It works almost the exact same way. I mean, obviously the game is way less forgiving and it's like a whole different level of darkness to it, but it's just weird how me like I stream like when I started streaming like my main game was Ocarina of Time, and sometimes like the mechanics like just the muscle memory that I have from that game it's still relevant when I play.
I was gonna say, like, is it too much to say that the combat system in Ocarina of Time with the toggling, the backstepping, the sidestepping combat system was like a precursor to Demon Souls? Is that too much?
I mean, it was basically a precursor to all 3D combat. I mean, it basically set the standard for how to target things. Like Mario 64 had a camera, but didn't have a way to target anything.
So that camera was
a little
awful.
bit wonky when you want to try and actually hit a specific thing.
That camera was so bad with like you try to zoom out like whoop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah, but it was also like the best camera in a video game at the time.
True, it was true.
And so just Zelda having a way to target and to sidestep around an enemy was pretty groundbreaking, and I don't know if anyone has really made it better. Everyone just says, yeah, that's how you do it. And so, yeah, it's a precursor to whatever Demon Souls and Dark Souls. I haven't played those. I've only played Elden Ring. So
you try to recreate this wheel, but it's not going to get any more round. Like
right.
it is what it is. It stuck out to me today because I was just thinking about how like Breath of the Wild 2 is supposed to be coming out. At least it's the announcement, as far as I can tell, still says 2022 somewhere. So I don't know if it's actually going to happen, being honest. It'd be nice if it happens. I'm actually at a point where I'm kind of worried that I'm not going to like it more than Elden Ring. If I'm being
It will
frank.
be a completely different kind of game. I aside from just being a big world that you explore, like the games have nothing. The games have almost nothing in common. Like, that's not to say they won't have any fans that like both, but I'm surprised that I'm enjoying Elden Ring at all. I played it because friends were begging me to, not because I was hyped for it or anything. And so it's not really the kind of game I would normally play. And I'm a lot more at home in Zelda. So I highly suspect I will like Breath of the Wild sequel more, but I don't know. It's a very different thing, and I don't think that at this point in development that Elden Ring will influence it at all. It's not gonna learn any lessons from Elden Ring or from Horizon Forgotten West or any of the other recent games. Like it's almost done, and it's just going to be what it is. And I think that it'll bring its own ideas. It'll bring its own ideas to move things forward in a different way, and probably in a dramatically different direction.
And that's my greatest hope for it. because when I was thinking about it today, I was like, like if you've played the other FromSoft games, you can see how shifting to an open world, to me it felt like they took a lot of direction from like the kind of moves that Breath of the Wild did from Zelda, in order to kind of move like into open world dungeons as a thing. Like how people kind of say that the like the Hyrule Castle in the middle of Breath of the Wild was kind of like their prototype open world dungeon, and we're kind of all hoping to see more of that in the sequel. And it kind of feels like Elden Ring kind of did that in its own way. So I mean, I know that it won't influence Breath of the Wild 2. Like I agree with you. It's totally too late in the process for that to even be a thing. But in my head, these two games are still kind of in conversation with each other. Like when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, there's no way you're not going to see a bunch of different comparisons made.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And talks about development.
And I would say, like, it's basically what you just said, but I do hope that if there's any similarity between the two games, I do love how seamless the dungeons are in Elden Ring. How there's no load screen. It's not an elevator you take. I mean, I guess there are some elevators, but but you don't. When you go into a cave, there's no loading screen, right? There's no shrine with an elevator that goes down to the dungeon. So I like that you just walk up to the castle and you go in it. And I think it'd be cool if there's a forest temple and you just wander into a forest and, oh, there's a temple you just accidentally wandered into. That is my hope for the sequel.
That'd be sick.
And Elden Ring did do that. Very much so.
My hope for the sequel, and I don't want to sound like I didn't like Breath of the Wild because I loved it. Spent ridiculous amount of hours in it, but I didn't get attracted to the story at all. It was kind of bland to me. It was like the first Zelda game that I just feel like the story was kind of meh. I don't know if that's how you guys feel.
I really like the story. It's just a very unique type of storytelling. And honestly, it kind of has a similarity to Elden Ring in that regard, that the story is told a lot through the places you go instead of in a cutscene that explains what's going on. And so like there's important information in Breath of the Wild, like hidden in Zelda's diary. And if you don't go in the castle and find it, you never get that story. There's also a hidden scene with Cass that a lot of people don't see, because you have to do all of Cass's other quests and then go back to Rito Village and talk to him afterward.
That scene's probably available in my game because I think I've done all of his other shrine quests.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff in Breath of the Wild that's just different than what Zelda fans expected, and that story-wise, but also the whole game is that way. And so I think I like what they did, but completely agree that there's a lot of things that are just not what Zelda fans expected, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. And sometimes it's just confusing.
Sure, yeah.
Like, yeah, let's get off this. I think we could talk for hours about the stories and.
I'm not gonna lie. I secretly just wanted to bring that up as a topic for us to discuss. And I'm sated. I'm good. We can move on.
Sated. So we were gonna read.
We're talking the manga.
You guys mind if I give it a reader?
Which manga are we following? Is this the Ishinomori one or the Himikawa one?
So this is the Ishinomori.
This is my favorite. This is like my favorite Zelda comic.
Okay. Here's the deal. Like, I think Anthony found it for us because we didn't actually know it existed before we started this season. And we kind of were, scratching our heads about the user manual and why it kind of contradicted the game itself. And it led Anthony down this rabbit hole that got us to this at least to the description. Like, we've been going through the synopsis of it. So I don't know if that breaks your heart or not, that we haven't actually read the comic itself. Or at least I haven't.
I haven't.
We've been reading through the description on the Zelda wiki, like the ZeldaFandom.com.
Yep. I actually opened that when you. I just pulled it up.
Great.
Like a side note, Zelda Universe founded that wiki.
Nice.
So it's our go-to source for a lot of things.
Well, I'm glad you got a plug. It's good. I'm glad we didn't use the other wiki.
There's not very many of them.
No.
Back in the day, a bunch of the different sites all worked together on this one before it kind of became the de facto ZU wiki. But anyway.
Nice. So last time we left off in the middle of chapter 4, because we stopped right before we got the Master Sword, because in the game we stop at the end of the Tower of Hera, so that's what we did here as well. So it's actually it's two main body sections here.
It starts
through the second one
with all 3 pendants in hand is the beginning of where we'd start reading.
Right.
So you want to read through 5 as well, Cam? If you got that much in you.
Oh yeah, I'm good to read it.
Okay.
I loves reading stuff. All right, so with all 3 pendants in hand, Link enters the Lost Woods and, while speaking telepathically with Sahasrara, begins to have his doubts about whether the Master Sword will select him as his bearer. Sahasrara goes on to explain that his parents were knights of Hyrule, but stumbled into the Dark World, and, after they disappeared, Link's uncle adopted him to shield him from the intrigues of the royal family. Just then, the young hero finds the Master Sword and seizes it from its pedestal, readying himself to have his final battle with Aghanim and rescue the princess. Chapter 5, An Old Enemy. After defeating 3 ball-and-chain troopers with a single spin attack, his family's specialty, Link decides to lie down and rest for a bit, only to be awoken by Zelda via telepathy. Although the young hero tells Zelda that he must rest, Zelda reminds him that only a single night remains until Aghanim casts his final incantation on her and causes the entrance to the Dark World to open and overwhelm Hyrule with its evil. She goes on to say that Link cannot forget the sacrifice that his uncle made to stop Aghanim's plot, as well as the fact that his parents were sent to the Dark World for that same reason. Link, now confident with the power of the Master Sword, heads to Kakariko Village with his friends, but finds out that all approaches to the castle are blocked by Aghanim's soldiers. The librarian comes up with the idea of making a hot air balloon to carry him inside the castle. Meanwhile, at the castle, Aghanim's preparations to cast the final incantation are complete, but he is soon interrupted by Ganon. He warns the wizard that a being with intense emotional energy is approaching the castle, much to Aghanim's surprise. Knowing this, Aghanim decides to wait on casting the incantation until Link arrives so that he can send Zelda to the Dark World right in front of Link. Just then, Link lands on the castle's highest tower and, after easily defeating a few soldiers with the Master Sword's might, he rushes to find Aghanim in the middle of his spell. Sahasrara contacts Link and tells him not to trust all the power in the Master Sword, for even the legendary blade cannot harm Aghanim's body. Link attacks him anyway, but the Master Sword passes right through the evil wizard, which causes him to turn around and paralyze Link by only looking at him. Aghanim then casts Zelda into the Dark World, triumphantly mocking Link that not even the legendary hero could stop him from obtaining the Triforce. As Aghanim continues to ridicule Link for challenging him, only to meet his doom, the Master Sword begins to shine while Link is still frozen. And then I think we can go through the first paragraph of Chapter 6.
Yeah.
So, Chapter 6, A Fool in the Shape of a Tree. Link's rage towards Aghanim begins to channel through the Master Sword, since the young hero and the legendary blade are as one, which causes for the castle to begin to crumble. Aghanim and Link begin to battle, and after Sahasrara reveals to the young hero that the Master Sword was also forged to repel evil magic, Link uses the sword to turn back Aghanim's magic against him and successfully defeat him. Bested by Link, Aghanim reveals that him being killed will not restore the Wise Man's seal, and with his final breath, transports Link to the Dark World as Hyrule crumbles to reveal the Pyramid of Power.
Wow. Is that what the center pyramid is called? The Pyramid of Power?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's in the game, and that's not a comic creation.
Well, I probably just haven't read the title block.
It makes sense. It makes sense in hindsight a little more. since we now associate Ganon with the Triforce of Power specifically. And so having that monument that's kind of Ganon's castle, if you will, in the center of the Dark World, is kind of symbolic.
Yeah,
I like it.
it's a good observation. Yeah. So one of the things we've noticed about this comic is that there seems to be a lot of Link and his parents being like a major plot device. Being that it seems like they have stumbled into the Dark World, and Link is now like kind of like, aside from trying to rescue Zelda and save the world here, like he's also trying to reunite with his parents. And sometimes it's kind of muddied, like which motivation he's currently chasing after. But I don't know. It's just something that kind of stands out to me, is how much of that is written into the comic when, you know, the game doesn't address that at all. I mean, obviously this is like super off game. Like this isn't what we're playing at all. But you know, some of these things are pretty in line in terms of like the conversations that go on between Aghanim and Link. Like even in this, like waits for Link to show up so that he can like,
I want him to see
Zelda
it.
disappear right in front of him. Like I want him to see it. Yeah. It's like,
Link still seems to care a lot about Zelda in this. Like whenever it's like Link's determination is towards Zelda, but it seems like his parents are oftentimes just mentioned by other characters that are like trying to give him more motivation, but it seems like he already good. Like he's just going after Zelda and they're like, yo, your parents are there too. He's like, Zelda, runs off.
You know what it reminds me of? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that his parents are kind of a plot device, kind of just tying it into the whole Knights of Hyrule thing, saying, well, your parents were Knights of Hyrule, so you're a Knight of Hyrule also, because they talk about the Knights like it's a bloodline rather than a thing you get trained to do. And so that's really where it comes up. It's not a major thing, but honestly, like both manga, I know you're not looking at the Himikawa one, but that one, they make multiple references to Link's parents as well. And I think it's kind of a comic book thing, because in the video game you just kind of accept, you know, whatever, Link lives with his uncle, who cares? But when you've got a better or maybe more mature storytelling medium, it's more of a, oh, this is a kid who doesn't have parents. We could explore why he doesn't have parents and where they went and all that kind of thing. How did he end up where he is? Give him a backstory, since he's gonna, I mean, Link is talking, you know, in this, he's different.
He rides hot air balloons, man.
The librarian invents the concept of a hot air balloon.
I was going to say, that couldn't have been something that really existed much in their universe. It's just like, let's just make a giant balloon and go over there.
I love the image on the wiki of like this patchwork hot air balloon.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's actually,
notes.
This is one of those things, maybe I'll have to show you on video later or something, but there's actually an old woman, there's an old woman in the village, actually, in the game too, but she like is sewing it all together like a quilt.
Nice. It does look like Post-it notes, Anthony. You're right.
Doesn't it?
It's the Frankenloon.
It's that 3M hot air balloon, you know? Wow. Yeah,
Also, Ganon, right? Like, Aghanim's trying to prepare the incantation for the Dark World, and then Ganon interrupts him and is like, hey, Aghanim, there's a being with intense emotional energy approaching the castle, and I want to feel like that's just Link in the hot air balloon going, Zelda!
Just like slowly floating towards the castle, just seething.
I like how he could have also said, yo, there's an emo kid on his way.
Well,
technically
Ganon
emotional.
is an empath, clearly.
He senses the rage.
Wow.
He has the Triforce, so he can do lots of things.
Nice.
That's also the first introduction, though, that we have of Ganon in our cast, right?
I'm sorry, what?
What?
We don't know yet that Ganon is in the game, right? In this cast?
No, I mean, we only know through the user manual, I think.
Yeah.
At this point.
Dragmire.
Well, Aghanim claims to be part of an evil tribe, but that's about as far as-
Mandrag.
Yeah, and like I'm not super well versed in the true story and getting deep into some of that lore, but the manual differences. The English is different than the Japanese, and there is some kind of evil tribe mentioned multiple times throughout the Zelda series, and so Aghanim claims to be part of that evil tribe. And then, so the manual mentions that Ganon in the backstory, and makes up the name Dragmire for him. But yeah, at this point, I don't think Ganon has really been mentioned in the game. Even in the game, I don't think he's mentioned.
I think that he doesn't really get mentioned until pretty late on. Like, I don't think we're going to hear about him until.
I mean, actually thinking about the game always says Aghanim. Ganon's a little bit of a surprise.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no.
Spoilers
that's...
for a 30-year-old game.
The game is so old. It's still good though. It's still
my unspoiled ears.
Could release it today, and it would still.
I didn't know Ganon was in this game. This is my first playthrough.
He was in the manual, bro.
No, I knew.
Yeah, just trying to see some of this other stuff. I mean, it seems like the Master Sword is played up like Excalibur. Like you just wield it, and it does amazing things.
Also, they've from time to time in this comic they mention Link's undying and unfaltering rage for Aghanim. Like like Cameron said, seething. Whereas in the game, it just seems like he's not like, you know how when you go to the Dark World and we have the Moon Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Link. There's no mention of the Moon Pearl, at least to my knowledge, in this comic. So when Link reaches his hand for the first time through the Dark World, there's a claw because it's like within his own body. It says because he's so full of rage that he turned into like a crab monster in that dream. So it's like, why is Link so mad? I mean, I get it, but like, he's so much more mad in the comic.
I don't know how deep you want to go into the comic a little bit later, but I believe the way they describe it in the comic, rather than just having the MacGuffin in your pocket that keeps you safe, is kind of that the Dark World is bringing out whatever you really feel. And so because he's angry and maybe full of himself a little bit with his new magical sword that just kills everything, he just kind of is consumed by it. And it's almost like I'm going to use a Star Wars reference. I think people mostly will get that. It's almost like a Jedi thing of a Jedi who has to fight back bad feelings. Otherwise they'll overcome him. And so you have to really feel it. You can't just say, you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. You have to do both or the Dark World will get you, is kind of the implication. And that if you let it overtake you too much, then you might be stuck that way forever.
Gotcha. It's like a self-control kind of.
Right.
If you can't be Obi-Wan Kenobi, then don't hold the Master Sword.
Become a monster of sarcasm. Oh goodness. No, but that's cool. I mean, that's all of the like base content that we were planning on covering for tonight. Yeah. Overall thoughts. I mean, I know for myself. I mean, like this is the major transition. I mean, this is, I mean, if you want to go into like definitions of like the story of the hero, you're going into the challenging world, like the special world or whatever, and like going into this the dark world. I think the first thing we get when we get there in the game is Sahasrara actually can talk to us telepathically still across the dimension, which is kind of a
powerful magic
reveal. But even he's like, like now you have a new mission to go find all the maidens and save this half of the world, the light world, and it's something again that just seems to happen a lot in the games from this point forward, is this transition into almost a second world or a second state of the world. Like I know you take Twilight Princess, like the actual Twilight realm is kind of akin to this. You have, in Ocarina of Time, even like having the adult world be this like dark, overtaken Hyrule versus like the kid Hyrule. There's a several games where this kind of theme has played out, and it's just a really cool moment to finally like have this reveal. Like it's not just some weird anomaly up on Death Mountain. It's the entire map,
Right, and like if you snoop around with your buttons, you can kind of see that in Death Mountain too, because you can open the map if you think to. But no, it is like this. Like you said, this is actually the first time Zelda did this also. So it's just kind of establishing another, just core part of what we expect out of Zelda. And it's another one of those things where you play a Zelda game and it doesn't have anything like it. And you're like, where is it? Where's the second world? Or, and maybe we'll get that in the Breath of the Wild sequel.
Yes.
That would blow people's minds.
Like, you go through the whole world once, and there's like 3 or 4 temples to find, and then when you beat the 3rd or 4th one, you go out, and the world's totally different, and that's where all them floating islands are, and it's like,
It's just flipped upside down, and then you go through the castles upside down.
Everything's flipped, turned upside down.
Inverted castles.
The Fresh Prince of Hyrule.
That's the title reveal they wanted to keep from us. Fresh Prince.
Oh goodness.
Right. No, I'm good. So I guess we can call it there. That's I think everything we needed to cover. Josh, are there any other like creative pursuits you're able to share with us today, or that you can where people can find you? Out there in the web space.
ZeldaUniverse.net is the main website. We try to link everything we do from there. But you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Watcher Joshua. And then I do also maintain ZeldaArchive.org, which is it's a collection of all of the Zelda fan projects that have websites associated with them. So you can find other Zelda websites to go look at. Some of them are very specialized to specific things, and others are just other general fan projects that have been around for a long time too. But I'm also documenting the history of the community there. So there's a complete list of every Zelda website that we know ever existed.
Nice.
And so that's my other project, trying to keep track of the history of what Zelda fans have been up to since the internet got started. So there's still a long way to go there, but it's a cool resource if you want to go poke around at other Zelda websites and see what they're up to. Because there's some people still making some cool stuff and just finishing some cool projects.
I absolutely love what you guys have on your main page of Zelda Universe, where it's like, it's dangerous to go alone, so join the largest community of Zelda fans.
I'm
awesome.
Happy to say that I thought that up and put it there.
Really? That's good.
No, I really wanted to inject a little bit of fun and NES character in there. So I thought that was a fun way when we decided to put the little social media buttons on the front page. But
nice.
But no,
all
generally right. if Zelda's somewhere, you can find me.
Awesome. All right. Well, once again, we just appreciate having you on the show. And hopefully we can, link up and play some Elden Ring someday.
I haven't touched the multiplayer yet, actually.
Oh, man, you got to get on that. It's so good. But, yeah. All right. So, everybody, this has been our episode of A for No, B for Yes. Thank you so much for listening. You can catch us in about 2 weeks from now. So be listening out for our next episode. If you want to reach out to us, you can contact us at a4nobforyes@gmail.com or on any of our social medias. We will have our links in the description as always. But thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.